Alrighty folks, last video in the free spreadsheet course, the basic course. Two things I wanted to go over with regarding one regarding pivot tables, which I have an example here, and I'll include this again with the free course, this spreadsheet as an example, and then also what I was saying about a sheet-to-sheet reference, or even making it an absolute reference for sheet-to-sheet. So let's start with pivot tables. So back to this sheet-to-sheet spreadsheet document, and what I did is I created, I have two in these columns, these A, B, C, and I, J, K columns. I have essentially what a kind of a faux business, a sample business. I have a column for expense, the amount, and then the date of the expense, and then as far as revenue goes, an idea, say how much, or the invoice number, the amount, and then also the date of that invoice. So in this case, I created this this pivot table, and I'll show you how to use it. The nice thing about pivot tables is it aggregates the data. So everything that's labeled advertisement is going to be aggregated together for easy referencing. This one, once you have that data, pretty much you can use a basic formula. Let's see. Sum should be here, and they give you amount, total amount of what you spent on advertising. So nice thing, that's one of the beauties in the pivot table. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you how this is, or how it works. So essentially what I have to do is I have to highlight all of the cells that I want to include in my pivot table. Now from here, I'm going to go ahead and go to Insert and Insert Pivot Table. Current selection. Now, depending on the software you're using, whether it's Libreoffice as I'm using, or it's like Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets, it's going to be somewhat similar to this format, because the pivot table concept is practically the same. Now, in order to do what I did, kind of mirror what I did with my expenses, essentially what I'm doing in the row fields, I'm going to put revenue, and I'm going to put the, let me see, nope, not the amount, just the date. And then for the data fields, once I bring this here, it's just going to sum it. And really the sum, I could put amount there and it would be the same. I could, put this amount here in the row fields and it would be the same, but I'm just putting sum amount. I'll put the amount here for summing it. Now, okay, so another key item. So it already has the selection that I requested, but what I want to do, instead of making it a new sheet, I want to put it over here. I want my pivot table sort of like this one to be right next to what I have here in my cells, the data. So that's what I have. This is essentially what I have. Now it doesn't necessarily, because each of these invoices are unique, it's not going to aggregate anything because they're unique for this example. But say if you had a naming system, a naming convention, and you had a specific customer, it would make it unique. So contract work here, it aggregates it for me. Now that's pivot tables, kind of a basic view, but again, you see where this data is, kind of all over the place, just raw data. It, using the pivot table, it's going to aggregate it for you, so you have a visual cue as to how much you spent. This case, fuel has been, quite a bit throughout the year, and I could go down here and in this cell and just sum up all this data, only the fuel, to be able to dial into what our fuel costs are. Now lastly, what I wanted to mention, again, remember about referencing. I can reference tabs. I can reference other cells, an absolute reference to other cells within a tab, or tab to tab within a sheet. I can also reference an entirely different sheet. And this one's an example here where I'm pulling this data from, actually I'm pulling it from over here. This is the cell I'm referencing down here on the expenses. And I'll show you that example with what I have right here. Total result, it gives me total income. So that's another nice thing about pivot tables. It gives me the total result at the bottom. So here's my expenses and here's my revenue for my fictitious business. So let me go back to this calculator. Now business income, I'm going to hit the equal, and then I'm going to mosey on over to the sheet, click on the cell that I want to reference, and it comes over. It pulls the data over. Now again, if you were to change directories, or if the files change the directories, it's going to break. Essentially this directory or the reference that's placed in here. You can also put, you can also make it an absolute by putting the $sign here and the $sign there. You don't necessarily have to, but if that's something that you wanted to do, you could do it. So going back here, again, it's pulling from an entirely different sheet, and then I can just add that business income being the difference between the two, business income minus business expense. And then I'll go ahead and format it for pretty purposes. So that's the beauty in you're referencing using other sheets. Again, you always have to be careful, because if that data moves, that cell changes. If you have it absolute, say if you have it positioned absolute and it changes, then this is going to throw your figures off. But it's good if it stays static, and that basically aggregate amount stays in the same column, same row. You could do some really nice automation for your calculations on spreadsheets, and that's another beauty of spreadsheets. I hope you enjoyed this in the full course, the one that we're going to be offering, at a minor cost. We're going to dive a little bit more into some of the other useful functions that businesses use: HLOOKUP, VLOOKUP, concatenate, text, left adjust, right adjust, some of those things that just make your life easier when you're using large data and spreadsheets. So again, hope you enjoyed the video, and good luck with the small quiz. Have a great day.